In this episode, we're going to talk about generosity and giving back.
Welcome to Thriving Launch with Louise Congdon and Kamala Chambers, the show for heart-centered entrepreneurs who want it all.
5 days a week, we bring you different segments to inspire you to live a life of freedom. We interview the leading experts in the field of business, health, and love. Be sure to check out Training Tuesdays, where we give you a clear action plan to grow your own business.
How would you like to be able to interview world-class experts, sit down and have chats with people like Jack Canfield, Marianne Williamson, Robert Kiyosaki, Tim Ferriss, you name it? Would you love to interview other people that you really admire and consider to be your heroes? Well, we've created a course for you that teaches you how to podcast, how to set it all up, and how to get going so that you can really have a successful show and you can do it properly. Over at thrivinglaunch.com, we have a podcasting course, and it's there for you, waiting for you to snatch it up. So head on over to thrivinglaunch.com and let me teach you how to podcast the right way. Today's guest has made millions using penny stocks. He's a financial investor who has also created several multimillionaires, people who have taken just a few $1,000s and turned it into hundreds and thousands of dollars and into millions. Timothy Sykes joins us today to talk about the power of giving back.
Hey, welcome to the show. Are you ready to launch?
Yes.
Awesome. Well, this is something that's so fantastic. I know that you give a lot of money to charity. You're always giving back, which is so important. I want to hear why that's important to you as a business owner.
Yeah, I just recently got into the charity space. I started my own charity, the Timothy Sykes Foundation, about a year and a half ago. It took a while to get the whole 501c3 official status, but I've also been working with other charities, and I really zeroed in on my passion, which is education. So just a few weeks ago, I announced this huge donation from my charity of $1 million to probably what I think is the best charity in the world right now, Pencils of Promise. They've built schools all over the world. They're at around 400 schools. So this $1 million that my charity is donating to them will open a few more dozen schools in Laos and other third world countries. And, I'm someone who teaches stock trading, and I know education is hard, but in these third world countries, forget about specialized education. We're just talking about basic literacy and just the ability to even read and, have a future, because so many people around the world don't even have that. And then they have to work these manual labor jobs that are earning so little money for their families, and they're stuck in this cycle forever. And we have to really try and do what we can to change that. So, I'm proud of my charity. And I think with all my business success, you look back and you're like, what are you really proud of? Okay, I'm a successful trader. Okay, I have a few millionaire students, but giving back and changing the lives of thousands, if not tens of thousands of people, I think is something that's far more important.
Thank you so much for doing the work that you're doing and for supporting so many amazing causes. And Pencils of Promise, what a fantastic organization. I'd love to hear, what does that play, how does that play into who you are as a person, and why do you think that's important to give as a business owner and as a human?
Yeah, charity is kind of a weird space where it feels good to give back. But if you look on social media, my posts where I talk about charity are the least liked. So it's not really necessarily great for my business, but it's great for me personally. And what I think is that you need to have goals, and you need to clearly define those goals for yourself. Asking myself 5, 10, 20 years ago, would you be willing to give $1 million to somebody else? I would be like, hell no. There's so much I can do with that. But after you personally make millions of dollars and, your business is doing very well, you have to kind of look for more meaning in your life, and you have to create new goals. And, I didn't jump both feet into charity all at first. I wasn't like, oh, let me donate $1 million I don't know what to do with it, but let me just give it to everybody. I've been doing donations of like 5, 10, 20, 30, $50,000 for several years. And only when I really found the best charity that really, is in alignment with my goals and, their execution is superior, that's when I really jumped at it. So I think people should look to find their passions and then try to find individuals or organizations that are in the similar space, and then try and find the best in that space and then work with them. And, once you find the best, once you find the best executors, that's when you can really create greatness, and you can really grow a lot faster than if you worked with, just some random charity or something like that. And it doesn't have to necessarily be charity. I'm sure some people out there, it's not just about giving money. You can give time, or maybe it's not even charity that drives you. Maybe you want a big house or a big, a fast sports car. Whatever drives you, just try to do what you can to get there, and then try to be, the best in that space.
One of the things I'm curious about with you, because I know you're starting your own nonprofit, and that's quite a big endeavor to take on. I've worked in the nonprofit in my previous life, so to speak. That was my life, working in a nonprofit with immigrant families, impoverished families, homeless people. I did that for most of my working life, and I know what it takes to run a nonprofit. I was a director at a nonprofit. So kudos to you for doing that. One of the things that I know, that having worked in that field for a long time, and I'd love to ask you, and I'll chime in a little bit as well too, because this is one of the questions that people are asking, is how do I know that I'm donating to a good place? When we look at some of these places that come and knock on doors, for example, having done the door knocking myself, that was like my first entry point into the nonprofit world, I learned that, they take a huge percentage of the money that you donate. And so as a donor, it doesn't feel very good when you donate and you go, well, only $1 of my 20 is actually going to be used, or $2 out of my 50, or 3 out of my 100. So that doesn't feel very good. Or this nonprofit is highly disorganized. And so, who knows if that money's even going to ever be used, or if my time is really going to make an impact. How do we know, and how did you find that Pencils of Promise was the place that you wanted to donate to?
Yeah, there's a lot of bad charities out there, and it's kind of crazy. Like, even some of the most well-known ones, they have such bad expense to giving ratios, and you're like, oh my God, if you see a commercial on TV, it's probably a bad charity expense-wise, because they're spending that money to try and, get the word out there using expensive TV ads. There are some websites out there like Charity Navigator, GuideStar, Charity Watch, that are 3 that I look for, and they basically rate charities based on how efficient they are. But for me, it's more than just, a numbers game. I want to see solid execution, because you might give the money to build a school, but okay, you build a school, and then what happens? It could be like an Olympic stadium, where you build the Olympic stadium, and then 5 years later, 10 years later, it's totally irrelevant, as we see with a lot of these Olympic stadiums all over the world. So Pencils of Promise doesn't just build the school. They also invest in teacher education and supporting programs so that the school is, working well. They don't just invest in any programs. I actually asked for my school to have internet access, because, I'm a big believer in internet education. And they're like, well, we're testing that out, but we still have to wait and see on the data. So it's kind of cool that Pencils of Promise uses the big data from their over 400 schools now, so they can see what programs are working in different countries. So you really have to kind of get into the charity and understand them. So I would highly recommend donating a small amount, and then participating, or maybe not even donating a small amount, like spending time at first with a charity and getting a feel for how good or bad they are, how well they execute. Pencils of Promise, I went to their charity gala, best gala I've ever had. Just the whole donation process, they were, so attuned to what I wanted, and so organized. It was really impressive. And now, I'm here, I'm doing this interview in Laos, and this is the best little charity trip that I've ever been on, and we visited several schools, and everything is just organized from A to Z. So you have to get a feeling, and you have to really try to see what fits best. It's no different than what I teach in stock trading, where some people are like, oh, I'm scared to stock trade. I'm going to lose everything. It's not like a casino in the stock market where you bet all on red or black and you double your money or you lose all your money. With stock trading, you can cut your losses quickly. And the same thing with charities. If you donate or if you spend time with a charity and you're just like, well, they're not really as good as I thought, move on. And so Pencils of Promise, they're solidly rated on all those websites, Charity Navigator, Charity Watch, and GuideStar. But also I have several friends in the internet space like Lewis Howes, Gary Vaynerchuk, Pat Flynn, Addicted to Success, Joel Brown. They're all involved with this charity. So when my friends are involved and they start seeing something, then I kind of get a little better sense of what this charity is. And then, all the perfect execution. That's what led me to donate, the $1 million. I don't just throw around $1 million very easily. So you have to be very cautious with charities, but you start to get a sense over a few weeks and over a few months. And, Pencils of Promise for me is number one.
This is something that I think we've kind of touched on, but I want to come back to it as somebody who's been a big studier of many various forms and studies of spirituality, ranging from Islam, Christianity, yogic traditions, and various others. One of the things that I found in every single tradition that I've ever studied is this as in Christianity, it's called tithing, giving a percentage of what you make back to help other people, and just giving donations to help and giving back. Have you noticed that somehow by giving your level of happiness is increased? Has there been any kind of impact on your life that you've noticed through your practice of giving back?
Yeah, I think it's very fulfilling. I'm not a big believer in, specifically donating a certain percentage. I think probably the $1 million that I'm giving for my charity is probably too big of a percentage if you asked any responsible tax manager or whatever. But I don't care. You have to do what feels right. And this feels right. And like I said, I've been involved with charity for several years, but now I'm really jumping in with both feet. So you go with it. You try different stuff that works. And it's not just about charity and giving back. For me, this has made the money that I've made much more fulfilling, and it's made my whole teaching experience more fulfilling. But you have to find what fulfills you, and we're all different. So I don't like religions or people that say you have to do this a certain way. If I've learned anything from teaching my own students, is that we're all different and we all have different, hopes and desires and dreams and personalities. So you have to find what works best for you. And so I'm proud to share my charity story because, yeah, sure, it sounds good, whatever, but it's the most fulfilling thing that I've personally done. And that's all that you can really do in this life is try to find what moves you and fulfills you, and then focus on that as much as you can. It's not about what other people say or your parents tell you that what you should be involved in. I know a lot of people whose parents wanted them to be like a doctor or a lawyer and make steady income and have a nice safe education, and that's not what they want. Maybe they want to be a singer or a poet, or maybe they wanted to get into the charity space. You have to focus on you. And we live in very exciting times where you have the ability to learn pretty much any single thing you want online. You don't need a fancy degree. You don't need connections like you did in the past. Your family name means almost nothing. And that's a very exciting time. But you just need to have that understanding that the world is big and vast and you can do whatever it is that you want.
So beautifully said. And generosity is just such a fuel for gratitude, for love, to experience more of life in a more rich way. I find that when I give back to other people, I feel like I'm being given to as well. And you're also talking about being generous with ourselves, with what we really desire in life, being generous with our dreams and being able to go after that. Are there any last thoughts that you want to leave the thriving launchers with?
Yeah, it's just that really it's such an exciting time to be alive, whether it's charity or whether it's internet education or, anything in technology or social media. And you really just need to embrace it and recognize it. Don't be like left behind. I know there are some people who refuse to use emails. And some people who are like, oh, I don't want to get into that space. I don't understand it. You can begin to understand anything. And for me, again, I trade stocks. It's such a weird little niche that, it's all about money, and it's a very kind of a cold field. But if you can start to bring yourself into it, into whatever it is that you do, and you're just real and honest and transparent, you will go so much further than if you're closed-minded and, you're afraid to admit mistakes and you're embarrassed and you don't want to overshare on social media. I overshare. I don't care. I love the whole sharing economy. I love the whole mindset of sharing everything. Sometimes I do look like a dumbass, but it's okay because we all make mistakes. And if we shared openly and we're more of ourselves rather than putting on these fake fronts, I think, the world would be a better place, and you yourself will go further in whatever industry you choose, because it's like a breath of fresh air. There's so many fake people out there. Don't be one of them.
Absolutely love it. We've been here with Timothy Sykes on the Thriving Launch podcast. So fantastic to have you here. And Thriving Launchers, I encourage you all to go out and look for ways to be generous every single day. Even if it's giving to charities, working for charities, volunteering, or finding little ways that you can give back to yourself, to your dreams, to your community. Thank you so much for being here. Keep thriving, everyone. You've been listening to the Thriving Launch podcast. For books and resources related to today's episode, make sure to head over to thrivinglaunch.com. We'll see you there.